I'm going to quote Jules Verne. I'm going to turn us briefly to Jules Verne's classic Around the World in 80 Days. Rita, Verne's novel starts with a scene much like today. An early autumn gathering of highly respected personages, including many princes of trade, held at the London Reform Club, not so million miles from here. And at that meeting, you'll recall, Phileas Fogg wagers £20,000 that he can circumnavigate the world in 80 days, returning to London by Saturday, the 21st of December. And today, believe it or not, and I said I was desperate, it's exactly 80 days until the last day of the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris on Friday, the 11th of December. And this time it isn't just £20,000 that's at stake, but the chance to give the world a sustainable future, both environmentally and, forgive me, my job too, economically. Unlike Phileas Fogg, today's global challenges don't carry passports. They certainly don't stop at national borders. They need global solutions. So why then is Paris so important? I'm not going to go anywhere near where the Vice President went. I think he said it all for all of us. What I want to do, Rita, in the time I have available, is just look at that hard-nosed business case for getting a good deal out of Paris. So here's my first question. What happens if we don't make progress? What happens if we stick our heads in the sand and just hope it all goes away? Well, the costs are as clear as they are catastrophic. For businesses, the value at risk costs could exceed £4.5 trillion by the end of this century. Supermarket chain Asda estimates that 95% of its supply chain could be at risk from changing weather patterns and extreme events, as Al outlined. And we've already seen how global technology companies had to stop trading when flooding in Thailand shut down the factories they relied on. Besides the costs of inaction, the benefits of seizing the opportunities of the green economy are also clear. We know that the UK's green economy has sales of over £120 billion a year already. The green economy is a high-growth emerging market in its own right. It grows by about 7% a year compared to GDP growth of less than 3%. We've got 164 countries with renewable energy targets. That's 164 potential markets worldwide for our renewable industry. And the green economy has so much more potential, whether it's renewable power, low-carbon transport, sustainable goods and services, or ideas that none of us have even yet thought of. And a global climate deal, the thing that brought us here today, can, as the Vice President said, turbocharge this. On climate change, avoiding the costs and seizing the benefits means taking the right action. And since 2009, I think we've come a long way. The cost of solar and wind have plummeted. Electric vehicles have become a reality. Smart grids and the Internet of Things are transforming modern life. Our emissions are falling. Our economy is growing, and they are not in conflict. We've seen real progress by many of the companies in this room. We've seen energy-intensive companies like steel, cement, and glass setting out how they too can reduce their emissions. And we did see progress in the last Parliament. We've built on the 2008 Climate Change Act to develop policies which will decarbonise our economy. It was an example of showing leadership, and the government helped give business the certainty that business needs to invest. And it's important to say, as the Vice President did, that over many years the UK has built up real credibility on climate leadership and low-carbon investment. Hard won, but easily lost. And despite the progress so far, Today's investors, the investors I have the privilege to speak for, are more uncertain about the UK's low-carbon future. We've heard it already this morning. The rollback of renewables to the mixed messages on energy efficiency, these changes send a worrying signal about the UK, Rita, as a place for low-carbon investment. Moreover, this seemingly weakened commitment risks impacting our standing on the global stage. I think we've just had the best lecture on that we could have had, at the exact moment when we need to stand up and be counted. Yet in the last 7 years, we've seen remarkable progress. Whilst in the UK, in 2008, the UK was the only country with a Climate Change Act. Now we're not. Others have joined that crusade, from Finland to Mexico. Indeed, one of the big lessons from Copenhagen was that change can't be imposed on countries. The drive for change needs to come from the ground up. And now, as we run into Paris, 55 countries have made commitments to the UN about their intended nationally determined contribution. And an exciting title, hiding the fact that those 55 countries already account for 60% of global emissions. We've got, in the European Union, the 2030 targets we need, with the emissions trading system supporting reductions. And China, the world's largest emitter of CO2, has a plan to cap emissions by the end of the next decade or sooner. And in the US, President Obama's Clean Power Plan, which I agree should survive legal challenge, will cut America's power sector emissions by a third by 2030. So looking then to Paris, I believe we're in a much better place politically than we were 6 years ago. Our political leaders won't be heading to Paris expecting to thrash out all the details in a last-minute panic, as was the case in Copenhagen. We know there's still hard work to be done, but negotiators have been working hard for months. More groundwork has been laid and a much better understanding of countries' mutual concerns. At the moment, one of industry's biggest worries is that if some countries go faster than others, it undermines competitiveness. Not a reason to do nothing, but certainly a reason to get everybody together. A real concern. Yet if all countries pull in the right direction, we can make sure that where there are costs, the burden is shared more evenly. Paris should give firms the certainty, clarity, and confidence they need to invest. It should be a crucial opportunity for every nation to play their part to tackle climate change. In 80 days, we want to see negotiators heading back to Charles de Gaulle Airport with 3 wins in their back pocket. First, a long-term foundation for reducing emissions with agreement on how to ratchet up ambition on a regular basis. Second, a commitment to driving forward carbon pricing around the world. Whilst a truly global carbon market isn't realistic in the short term, it must remain our long-term ambition. And third, a solution for making finance and innovation the way we will make progress, making that innovation more accessible. Today, just 10% of climate finance flows from OECD countries to developing countries. We have to make sure developing countries can access the financial support they need for low-carbon energy and adaptation measures, especially from the private sector. And what I hope Paris can offer is a way to assess nations' efforts and to show how they're meeting the goals they themselves have set. Regular reviews will be important for making sure that countries are on track. And where more can be done, countries should be pressed to do so, safe in the knowledge that everyone at long last is pulling their weight. Maybe a glass half full view of what Paris can achieve. We need to be realistic. We're talking about good, not perfect, but I do think the optics are better than they've been for a while. Rita, I started my comments by mentioning Around the World in 80 Days. You'll remember that at the end of Verne's novel, Phileas Fogg returns to London thinking he's too late. He's lost his bet. When at the 11th hour, Passepartout reminds him he's travelled east around the world. He crossed the date line. He still has 1 day to spare. In the real world, we can't rely on chance to save us at the last moment. Avoiding tomorrow's worst-case scenarios means taking action today, here and now. Paris won't be the end of the journey. It's simply another step. It's a chance to give businesses long-term clarity, drive investment, drive innovation, and raise our ambition. Like Verne's novel, the journey won't be easy. There are many challenges, many questions. How can we help developing nations get the support they need? How should nations be required to show that they're cutting emissions? These questions need answers, but of equal importance is to keep our eye on the prize. I'm no Al Gore, but I believe it is important that business adds its voice to the chorus of organisations and individuals speaking out here today. Politicians and negotiators should be confident that UK business is behind them. Business also needs the confidence that a Paris deal will provide, the long-term certainty that business needs to help the rest of society find the solutions. 80 days from now, on the 11th of December, I want the ink to have dried on a deal in Paris. Like most things in life, the deal won't be perfect. Imperfection is the price of negotiation. But by working together, I'm reasonably optimistic we can drive ourselves towards the pro-growth, low-carbon future that business wants and the planet needs. Thank you very much.